My name is Brenda Sheik, and today is Friday, May 16th, and we're at the Pawnee County Fairgrounds in Pawnee, Oklahoma, which is located in Pawnee County, interviewing Martha Waters as part of the Voices of Extension Oral History Project. So, Ms. Martha, I want to thank you for joining us today. I'd like to ask you, tell us a little bit about your early life. Where were you born, and can you give us the date?
I was born in Stillwater, Oklahoma, in Payne County, July 24th, 1940, on the farm 80 acres southeast of Stillwater.
And what, tell me what your parents' names were and how many siblings and what their names were.
My dad's name was William Paul, and my mother's Violet Irene Tarpey, and there were 2 boys and a sister, Paul Rex, Richard William, Mabel Jean, and myself.
Okay. Is Mabel Jean still go by the Tarpley name, or has
No, she's married.
What is her married name?
Maxon.
Maxon.
Uh-huh.
And had you always, were you raised in the Stillwater area?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Where had your family, had your parents both been raised in Stillwater?
In that vicinity. My mother's parents lived 10 miles west of Stillwater.
Okay. What was your mother's maiden name?
Lowe, L-O-W-E.
Okay. Can you also spell Tarpley for us?
T-A-R-P-E-Y.
So I'm putting an L in.
You're
there.
putting
It
an
should
L
be.
in, yes.
I'll take it back out. Tarpey. Tarpey?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
And what did your parents do?
Well, my father got his BS degree from Oklahoma A&M College in 1929, and my mother had her teaching certificate, so they both taught for a couple of years, but after that they did various other jobs. Mother was in the extension home demonstration work in the early years, and then my father passed away in '44, so she raised the 4 of us.
So you were very young when your father passed away.
Yes, I was only 4.
And when you said that your mother did home demonstration work, was she an agent?
No, she was just in the home demonstration work.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember about those days of her being in club?
She was in the Payne Center Club in Stillwater, and I probably went to the meetings and was involved, as a young person there.
So you went to club with her?
Yes, yes.
So those were some of your early interactions with the extension.
Yes, and she was very strong in extension work. She liked for us to be involved in it.
So can you, do you remember any of the extension educators' names at that time?
Yes, Ladora Smith, or Ladora Chesbro Smith, was one that was when I became a 4-H member, and Joyce Scomp, Larry Sams.
The first one you mentioned, Ladora, was that her name?
Yes.
Do you remember if she had a family?
Yes, she had 4 children.
Okay.
And she was a widow woman.
And so do you know where she originally came from?
Not for sure. I at one time knew, but I can't remember. But she's lived in Stillwater for years.
Okay. Is she still living?
Yes.
Okay.
She's in her 90s, I think.
And tell us about, you mentioned that you were a 4-H member.
Yes.
What was the name of your club? Describe that to us.
I joined 4-H in 1949 at a rural school called Pleasant View, and went to that school for 8 years, which was about 2 miles from our home.
Was 4-H a part of the school?
Yes, it was. In those days, you didn't have extracurricular activities like they do nowadays, but so 4-H was one of the main activities that we had.
And how was that organized? Did you have a volunteer that came in, or did the teacher have a role? Or
The teacher let the agents come, but the agents basically did it. They came, taught the programs. The 4-Hers had put on meetings. and they did demonstrations and talks, and then the agents gave programs afterwards.
And do you remember any of the special little lessons they taught, or anything specific that?
Most of them were, dealing with the projects that we had. In those days, the girls had manuals, and it had complete activities in it, like clothing, home grounds beautification, gardening, home improvement, different projects, and you would complete the whole year of work as a 9-year-old, and then you'd go on to, and of course the clothing project at that time was a headscarf, and then 10-year-olds made aprons and different projects.
Do you remember what the boys' manuals, what topics it had?
Not specifically. I don't think they had a manual by age. They could pick projects that they wanted to do, probably poultry, gardening, grounds beautification, this type of thing.
And as you were working through your manual, do you remember some of those early year projects that you did?
Yes, I still have my headscarf and apron that I made 65 years ago, and embroidery.
Describe what you remember about making your headscarf.
Oh. You learned how to measure, and how to fringe out the headscarf, and how to stitch around the edge. And you had to have a certain type of fabric so it would fringe easily.
Where did you find the fabric?
Probably at some store in Stillwater. It may have been Kat's department store at that time. I don't remember for sure. But.
And that was the sewing. What were some of those early projects that you remember in the home management or the cooking?
We had we made a hand towel and pillowcases and different projects like that. And in cooking, they did cookies or breads, and whatever the year required, you'd complete the whole year of work.
When the agents would come, when the educators would come, could you describe what some of the meetings were like?
We were real, I don't know whether they at that time were judging the meetings or not, but at one time we used to judge the parliamentary procedure at the 4-H meetings, so they would kind of award the best club for their parliamentary procedure. So usually we would practice, as officers, and what they were doing on the meeting. And that was an opportunity to learn to speak before a group too. You started with a small group.
Do you remember some of the other children's names that were in the club with you?
Jane Duck, Elizabeth Hoff, there was Quentin McBride. My little brother was in there.
And were there any county events or activities that, as a 4-H member or group, you participated in?
Well, I do not remember the first doing anything in the first 8 years, because we were in grade school, more or less. But when I went into high school, yes, we had, based on our 4-H record books, we went to State 4-H Roundup, which was an opportunity for the 4-Hers to attend different projects, and also to give, on a state basis, their talks and demonstrations and compete with other boys and girls throughout the state.
How would you be well, you said that. How would you get to Roundup?
We, of course, lived in Stillwater, so we didn't have too much. But later, as an agent, we went to, we took a bus from here to take our 4-H members to Roundup. And a lot of the schools did bring school buses, I think.
Since you were already from Stillwater and that's where the Roundup was, did you stay with the rest of the kids, or did you go home at night?
No, we stayed in the dormitories. It was a 5-day, 4-night event at that time. It was a real enlightening and real educational program. But you got acquainted with a lot of 4-H members throughout the state, and got to learn a lot of their names.
About how many 4-Hers went at that time?
We probably had 15, something like that.
From Payne County.
How many total from the state would be there?
Several hundred. It was a big event.
How were meals prepared?
They had the dormitory cooked the meals, one of the dormitories, and we would go to the dorm to eat.
Do you remember any of the state 4-H leaders that worked at that time?
Yes, Ray Parker was there. Ira Holler was the state leader at that time. At one time, Mary Sue McBroom was at the state office. Jan Carnes, several different ones.
You've mentioned several people, Ray Parker, etc. Can you what were some of their titles, or what role did they have with 4-H specifically?
Well, Ira Holler was a state leader. He was the state leader over the state. Ray Parker did the recreational activities at the state. Taught a lot of activities with square dancing or fun dancing and programs to keep boys and girls involved. He was always real active that way.
And do you remember did you keep up with any of the young girls or boys that you met at Roundup through the years?
Yes, all the Sharp boys and girls, most of them, Raymond Sharp is back in Stillwater now. Raymond Sharp, and Ron Sharp was an agent in southeast Oklahoma, and their brother David and their sister, I think Karen. Didn't know them as well as I did Raymond and Ronnie.
Did you go on any other 4-H trips?
Yes, we went to American Royal in Kansas City. Those trips, basically like State 4-H Roundup, American Royal, county 4-H camps, different things like that. The 4-H agents took us to those activities or events. Then we went to Chicago to the National 4-H Congress, and we rode the train from Perry to Chicago overnight. And that was a big event.
Can you describe when you talk about the Chicago trip and riding the train, how did you prepare for that? Did you and your mom make some special clothes? What did you do to prepare for that trip?
I don't remember anything specifically other than at that time we had white scarves that we wore that said Oklahoma, and they could always pick us out in the group.
Did other states have special clothing as well?
Some of them did, some of them didn't. Some of them didn't have anything special.
What was the bus trip like?
The bus trip, train trip.
Oh, sorry, train trip.
Train trip, yes. Oh, it was fun. We slept on the train. We, could fold down the bed and sleep on the train, which, none of us had ever done. So this was a big deal. And there were a lot of people from all over the state, a lot of 4-H members there from all over the United States were at that activity too.
And the Chicago trip, what did you do? What was the purpose of it, and what did you do once you got to Chicago?
Well, we received that recognition or award by our 4-H record book. Our 4-H record books were entered in state competition. They were judged, and those that won were selected. I was a second alternate in Santa Fe, which was an overall project. Wasn't any specific project like clothing or foods, but it was overall. at that time I received an $800 scholarship from Sunbeam Corporation, which was a large amount at that time because I think it, if I remember right, paid for a semester of college. So that was.
And how many kids from Oklahoma, how many youth from Oklahoma went on the Chicago trip?
Probably, I imagine there were about 15, 20 that was on it. Yeah.
Do you remember how you felt receiving such a big honor?
I felt very honored to receive it. Very honored.
And after you got back from the trip, did you share your experiences or did you speak about that ever, or, I mean, publicly to promote it?
I don't remember too much about the Chicago trip, but I do remember myself and another girl giving a program about the American Royal. And that was a lot of fun, talking about what we did and what the activities and what we saw.
Describe the American Royal trip.
It was held in downtown Kansas City, and we went out to the show, the livestock show, and they had other events that they had us go to. It's been so long ago I can hardly remember.
And how long did that trip last?
I think it was about 4 days. 4 days.
Where did you stay in Kansas City?
Downtown in a big hotel.
Okay.
And Aladdin, I think. I think it was called the Aladdin Hotel.
And do you remember who you roomed with?
Other girls from, I don't know whether they were all from our county or not, but I remember Larry Sams taking us to the event.
What do you remember about Larry Sams taking you to the event?
Larry Sams was a lot of fun. Yeah, he had a zest for life, and he loved to.
And did you, was this, my apologies, did you get there by bus? Was that
No, it was by car.
By car?
Mm-hmm, by car.
Okay. And so.
In his car. In his car, yeah.
About how long it was a one-day trip, it wasn't as.
It's about 300 miles, so it was probably a full day that we took to get there. Mm-hmm.
And then, when you talk about some of the leaders that you had during your 4-H time, how did they influence or make a difference in your 4-H experience?
Well, they were influential in me deciding that that was the career that I wanted to take. So they had a big influence in my life as far as becoming an extension agent, especially Ladora Chespro. She was one of the main ones. After she became home demonstration agent, Joy Scomp became the 4-H agent at that time. And she, her husband was in vet school at A&M, or OSU.
What was it that Ladora did that made you kind of make that decision?
I don't know, she just influenced me. I mean, she was just a very attractive lady and very, had it all together. And I just...
Were your siblings, were they in 4-H as well?
Yes.
And how did the family's involvement with 4-H shape your family life?
We did a lot of 4-H activities and projects. We were out in the country, which was, only 3 or 4 miles away, but at that time it was a long way to town. And we did a lot of the gardening and yard work, and we had chickens and cattle and stuff like that we took care of.
And what were some of you've talked about sewing, did you do any canning?
Yes, we did a lot of canning from the garden.
And was that something you learned from 4-H or from your mom?
From 4-H.
From 4-H. And how were those lessons taught? Did you have workshops? How do you remember that being taught?
Well, Mother may have taught me a lot of that too, but in the early day. But then after I became an extension agent, we had workshops.
And what type of, did you always exhibit, I'm sure you always exhibited at the county fair?
Yes, county fair. Some of the counties had district fairs, but we didn't have a district fair, I don't believe.
How was a district fair different from a county fair?
It was just a smaller fair, you know, maybe more the community fair. They called it district, but it was basically more of a community fair, and then they went on to the county.
And was there ever a project that you felt like was a complete failure or that you were really disappointed in?
Don't remember any specific one. I'm sure I had several failures, but I don't remember any specific one. That I burned cookies or something, I don't remember.
This rural school you went to, was it a one-room schoolhouse?
It started out as a one room, but then they had two buildings, so then they moved it into two different grades. I mean, like first through fourth and
Okay.
fourth through.
About how many kids went out there?
Probably in the 8th grade class, I remember there were 10 in the 8th grade class, so there was probably about 40, 50 kids. Maybe.
Really, that big?
It was a pretty big school.
Talking about 4-H leaders, did they have, you know, today we have project leaders and organizational leaders and those kind of things. Did you have those kind of leaders back then?
No.
Just the educators or agents? Were your
Mainly
own
the
leaders?
educators or agents. You know, the school teacher was there, but I don't remember them being too involved. They would let the agents do the program, do the activity, but I don't remember any leaders at that time. They probably did in the background, but not like they do nowadays.
Did you all do the share the fund back then? Was it an activity?
No, it wasn't. I don't remember it being one of the events back then.
Okay. When you went to high school, you went to Stillwater High School?
Yes. 4 years.
Was the 4-H club in school there too, or?
No.
It wasn't?
No.
Probably a pretty good sized club, because at that time, girls couldn't be in FFA, so.
That's right. But it would have been after school. You know, it wasn't during the school system in Stillwater High.
About how many, what percent or about how many, was it a popular activity then in high school to be in 4-H as well? Or?
Not as big an activity in probably Stillwater High School because they had so many other activities going. But those of us who started in the country stayed with it.
And you've already talked about the influence that the FCS educator had on your career choice.
Yes.
So, where did you go to college? Is it Stillwater?
I went to Stillwater.
Right there.
Got my BS degree from OSU in 1962.
Were there any of your classmates that also ended up working for the Cooperative Extension Service that you recall?
That was in high school with me?
In college?
In college. Yes, there were. There were Ruth Dries Winters, which is in southeast Oklahoma, down around Stillwell, was one of them. We worked our way through college. Well, I say worked our way through, but we worked at the OSU PBX switchboard, which was on the 4th floor of the Life Science building. And we had to walk the 4 flights. There was not elevators. And it was kind of, you got 50 cents an hour, and it was one of those jobs where they worked it around your college classes. And my sister had worked there, and my sister-in-law had worked there. So I worked there, and my sister-in-law's 2 sisters worked there, and then Ruth and her 2 sisters worked there. So it was kind of a family deal.
And was that switchboard just for that college, or was it for the entire university?
It was for OSU,
And housed there at the College of Human Sciences?
what we called the life science building at that time. I know they don't have it anymore, but it was, you had the plugs where you'd plug in and make the calls for all the dorms and everybody.
Was it manned 24 hours a day?
Yes.
You refer to that as the PBX?
Yes.
Did that stand for something specific?
Not
or-
that I'm aware of. That's just what they called it, the PBX. It probably stood for something, but I'm not aware what it was.
Were you paid by the college, or was that a telephone company, or did the college own that? Or?
I do not know for sure. I do not know for sure.
What were some of the classes you took?
Oh, I took all the home economics ed classes. That's what I got my BS degree in. Had a lot of food preparation classes, clothing classes.
Do you remember some of the projects you made during some of those classes?
We had in the food preparation area, which was in the old home economics building east at that time. We had we fixed meals that we would let people come in and attend, and that was quite interesting. I can't remember the word I'm searching for, but it was like a lot of food. We prepared a lot of food for that class.
Did you charge the people to come and eat, or
No.
it was free?
That was free at that
Just
time.
to try your recipes out on it,
Yeah.
see if they liked them.
How did they get invited to that?
I don't know who invited them. I remember the professor and I remember the students, but I don't remember who invited them to, who was coming to the class. I remember one disaster there.
What was that?
Well, we were preparing, you had to order your food off of the second floor. You got what you needed to prepare, and we were baking cakes, and we were making a poppy seed cake, and instead of poppy seed they gave us black pepper. And it wasn't until we had already put the cake in the oven and the batter in the pan and everything that one of the boys in the class licked the bowl and it was black pepper. We had to discard that pretty fast and get some more supplies.
It wasn't a new recipe then.
It wasn't a new
That
recipe.
was a new creation. And who, do you remember some of the names of some of your professors?
Well, I had Beulah Hirschlein and I had Laura Casey. I can't remember who the food preparation teacher was at that time, but I can still see her.
Did those professors always have their doctorate, or
Not necessarily.
not necessarily?
I never did.
Beulah Hirschlein, what classes did she teach?
She taught in the home ec ed part, and so did Laura Casey.
And so what year did you start and finish with your bachelor's?
Started in 1958, finished in 1962. The fall of 58, graduated in the spring of 62.
What were some of the things that you did during the summers between your college years?
Work at the switchboard, work at the
So that was year round.
Year round. Started when I graduated from high school and worked up until I graduated from college.
And after college, that first summer or that first year after college, what were your activities? What did you do after that?
First year, well, I graduated in May 29th, 30th, something like that, and I went to work June the 1st, 1962 for Extension Service as the Assistant Home Demonstration Agent at Large in Purcell, McLean County, under Dorothy Blackwell.
And was she a district staff or?
No, she was county staff.
She was county staff. So at that time, did they have district staff,
Yes, Mabel King was the district
FCS?
uh-huh,
Who
or
do
home
you,
demonstration agent at that
home
time.
demonstration
Mhm.
agent? Do you remember who the district ag or district director was?
No, I can't remember at this time who it was. We've had several, and I can't remember who was at that particular time. The word assistant home demonstration agent at large meant that I was in training. They called me in training until a position opened where they could place me. And so I was there 6 months.
How much, what was the salary at that time for that position? Do you remember that?
I remember when we first started, and I don't know, I might not have been making as much then as I was, but right at my first job was right around 4,000, a little over 4,000, which sounds small now, but the rent on a furnished garage apartment was $45 a month, and gasoline was 17 to 18 cents a gallon, and you had to have a car, and you had to have your degree to work.
And describe the process of applying for that job.
Well, it's been so long ago, it's hard to remember, but I just went to the district agent and applied for the job and asked for it, and they gave me a couple of different choices of where I wanted to go.
Do you remember what the other choices were?
One was Canadian County.
And what was, how did you make the decision to go to McLean County?
I just thought I'd like it better down that area.
And what were some of the activities? You said you did that for 6 months.
Yes,
Do you remember some of the activities you did down there during that time?
yes, pretty much the same as what I was when I went on working with 4-H programs and the home demonstration clubs, attending those meetings and taking programs to them.
At the time, so kind of describe the county structure. Did all counties have an assistant? Is that what they call it? Did all counties have that?
No, no. McLean County was basically a 2, maybe 3 county staff. I think they had a man 4-H agent, and so I was just there temporarily. They basically had the county agent and the home demonstration agent. Then I was transferred on to Garvin County in 1960, well, 6 months later in November, and they had a 4-staff county. They had the county agent, home demonstration agent, 4-H, and the 2 4-H agents, 1 man, 1 woman.
And what was your position there? Were you a 4-H agent or one of the?
I was a 4-H agent,
4-H agent.
but they called me assistant home demonstration agent.
Okay. So that was kind of the structure, that you had a home demonstration agent and the expectation was that maybe they were a little bit experienced in the 4-H?
Yes, and you worked more or less at that time. I felt like you worked under them or with them. You know, as an assistant, you worked the 4-H program, and then you also helped with the adult home economics programs if they wanted you to.
Did the home demonstration agent, did she also do 4-H work as well, or was that mainly your responsibility?
Mainly my responsibility.
Do you remember any of the, who were the staff at that time in Garvin County?
In Garvin County, Leo Kavner was the county agent. Richard Hoover was the 4-H male agent, and Mary Tucker was the home demonstration agent.
And how long did you stay there?
2.5 years.
And during that time, did any of those staff leave and be replaced by someone?
No, not at that time.
And so after serving there for 2.5 years, do you remember taking any of those 4-H youth on trips? Or?
Yes, we did. We had. It was a pretty big county and a very active county, and we went to a lot of different activities. We did meets judging. We went to state 4-H roundup, and several different things.
What were some, how did your role change? It would have been quite a bit from a 4-H or going to Roundup to your early years as a 4-H agent.
Well, you were responsible for the 4-H members, and you supervised them and made sure that they had what they needed and that they, you know, got to do what they needed to do for activities and events and things.
Were there any of the 4-H members in Garvin County that went on to be employed by the Cooperative Extension Service?
Don't recall any at this time. I'm sure there was, but
Do any of the 4-H members at that time, do you still remember some of their names?
It wasn't too long ago that I saw the father of one of the girls that I had, but I can't pull up a name right now for it.
And what were some of your memories from your time in Garvin County?
Well, I enjoyed it. We worked Lindsay and Maysville and Pauls Valley and different towns. One of the 4-H leaders there later became a 4-H agent that was a 4-H leader in Garvin County while I was there. And that was Donna Stevenson Cadwallander, that has gone on to be at the state office
So she was a volunteer leader
at that time. Mm-hmm.
Can you describe a somewhat typical work week during your time as 4-H agent in Garvin County, some of the activities that you would do on a regular basis?
We attended all the 4-H meetings, and some of them were in the school system, some were not. You know, we would have maybe 2 or 3 a day, and then at night we would have 4-H meetings. And they had a lot of 4-H clubs in the county. They were real active.
And do you remember doing any lessons?
Yes.
Do any
Yes.
of those stand out in your memory?
Well, we would talk about the different activities that they could do and show them like clothing projects or food projects or whatever needed, whatever they wanted, were interested in.
Can you describe some of the county events that were held in Garvin County?
We had the county fair, we had county meets judging contest, and then they would go on to the state contest at Oklahoma City. They would go to share the fun and different events.
Were the speech contests back then pretty well attended, or
Yes,
was it
they
hard
were.
to get kids?
No, they were well attended at that time. They were. We had quite a few still rural schools in that area too.
And you still presented programs at every club meeting?
Yes, we did.
Do you remember how many 4-H clubs you had?
At that time? No, I can't remember exactly how many we had. Probably, I don't know, 20, 25.
Weekly meetings?
Yeah.
Weekly meetings?
No, monthly meetings.
Oh, I was going to say.
No, monthly meetings. Monthly meetings. Monthly meetings, once a month.
Let's see, we've got it easy.
Yeah.
And so after Garvin County, where did you go next?
I transferred to here in Pawnee County in April of 1965.
And what was your position here?
I was an extension home economist.
And who were the other staff members at that time?
Jack Pinkerton was the county agent, and Bunch was the 4-H agent.
Was there a first name to that? Was it a Mr., Mrs., Miss?
Mr. Bunch.
Mr. Bunch.
His brother's name was Benny Bunch, but I can't. He has since passed away.
So it was a 3-county staff.
Yes.
And this would have been the time, were there CEDs appointed at that time?
No. County agent was, they weren't called CEDs at that time. It was Donald Bunch. I couldn't think of his first name. His name was Donald Bunch, was the 4-H agent.
So the ag agent just assumed the administrative
That's
duties?
correct. That's correct.
And describe some of the programs that you had during those early years here in Pawnee County.
Well, they were much like what I did in the other counties. We would do I would do the home economics programs, attend the program and teach a small program at each home demonstration club, and then also attend the 4-H meetings here because I was the only female, and then we had the male 4-H agent. He and I would go to the 4-H meetings and do programs at them. We took the projector a lot of times and did a film, or it might be a video or something like that. So you had to have a strong back, carry a lot of equipment, boxes of equipment.
And during that time, do you remember ever having any budget concerns, or how was funding?
Well, I wasn't involved with the budgeting because the county agent was doing that, but our county was a smaller county and it did have budget trouble, with the budgets at that time. It wasn't as funded as why they only had 3 staff members at that time. Later became a 2-staff county.
And during that time, you served for some time, the rest of your career here in Pawnee County.
Correct.
You said you started with Jack Pinkerton and Mr. Bunch.
Donald Bunch.
Donald Bunch. Who were some of the others? Did those two move on? Who replaced them?
Jack Pinkerton retired in 1975, and that was when he asked me why I didn't apply for the job, and I said, well, basically because there weren't any women that were in that position, maybe one in the southeast part of the state, and I didn't think the commissioners would be receptive to the idea. And later a county commissioner came down to the office and asked me why I didn't apply for it. And after he had asked me, then I considered it and I applied for the job and became the extension home economist in the CED for Pawnee County, which at that time then they started calling them county extension directors. And myself and Jan Montgomery were the second women county extension directors in the state of Oklahoma.
Who selected the county director at that time? The commissioners or the district director?
Both, more or less, but probably more the district director, and the county commissioners approved it.
What was that experience like, being one of the first female county extension directors?
Well, I've told the story about when that word got out that I was, the woman county director. They thought of me as a county agent, which was a male position, and the news press started calling, and they wanted me to go out in the wheat field and take a picture out in the wheat field and talk about it. And I said, that's not my responsibility. There's an ag agent in the county, and my responsibility is still with the home economics program, and I'll just, as a county director, be responsible for the budgets and for the administrative part of the office. So it took a while to get that changed, the image changed, but we now have both men and women county extension directors in the state of Oklahoma.
And with your co-workers, either male or female, around the state or within your district, what was their response to you being named one of the first county? I mean, having a female county extension director was different.
It was different.
And so was there any resistance, or were some happy for you, or what was?
No, I think the women were all happy. I'm not sure that all the men were happy, but they got used to it.
At that time, did the county directors, county extension directors go to meetings? Did you
Yes,
have
they did.
meetings?
Yes, they did.
And,
Yes, we did, with the district director.
mhm.
Ronnie George was one of the district directors. Ed Gregory was the district director. Joanne Brannon was a district home economist at one time.
And those two, Ronnie George and Gregory, served in Northeast District.
Yes.
And at that time,
Well, for a period of time, we were in the central district, and Ed was
Okay.
really the central district. And then Pawnee County was reworked, and we ended up in the northeast district. And so that's when Ronnie George was in the northeast. And Jimmy Salee was also a district director in the northeast district.
at the time when Oklahoma had 5 districts,
Yes.
what were some of the other counties in the central district?
Okay. Kay, Pawnee, Payne, Pottawatomie. It was just kind of the central part of the state of Oklahoma.
Did it go all the way down then to the?
It didn't go all the way to the border, no, didn't go that far.
Just kind of central
Central.
strip.
Central strip.
Just
Oklahoma
right in the
City,
center.
yes, Oklahoma City was one of them too. Was in that central
McLean,
district,
Oklahoma.
McLean. Mhm.
Canadian, Noble.
Yes, they were.
And for historical purposes, why did that change? And
Well, I'm assuming that part of it was, again, budgets, and they were, downsizing, and so they made the area into, or made the state into 4 areas instead of 5, and that was part of it.
do you remember what year you were named as the county director?
Yes, February 15th, 1975.
You may have already said that, I apologize. Do you remember what year they went from 5 districts to 4? Or about what time period that
It
would
was
have been?
probably early 70s, late 60s, maybe.
79 or 80, because I was
Was
here
it,
at
was
that
it in
time.
79, 80? Okay.
Well, it was, I started in the 80s, so it had to be 80 or 81.
80 or 81, okay, I'd forgotten when it was.
And so, what were some of the other changes you remember seeing within the extension office or in the role of educator that you remember that pop out?
Well, one that I remember is that the extension, or the home demonstration agent, extension home economist, at that time, there was a rule, I guess, way back, until the late 50s, where they could not be married when they were working for extension service, and that changed, I think, in the late 60s, maybe late 50s, early 60s.
Even after they were allowed to be married, did they have to ask permission, or was there a time when they were required to ask permission to get married?
Not that I remember. I just remember it being a rule, and then all of a sudden that rule had vanished.
Were there any other changes?
If they decided they wanted to be married, they just quit work. That was kind of the way it worked in the early days. I'm sorry, what was?
We've also heard at times having educators, home demonstration agents that were widowed.
Yes,
And
and
so-
they could work
Mhm.
with their families, yes, because Ladora was a widow during the time that I was a 4-H member.
And what were some of the are there any other changes or historical events that took place during some of those times?
Don't remember any specifically that I can think of, but right now.
Did you belong to any of their state associations?
Yes, I did.
Did you belong, what were they called? And
Well, it's called the Oklahoma OHEC, Oklahoma Home Economics Association. Those were some changes when they first started. You had to wear hats and gloves, and usually were dressed for the occasion. No one wears a hat or gloves anymore, but that was in the early days, back in the 60s. Also, I remember during the library days, when we were going to the library at OSU, you were not allowed to wear shorts or jeans into the library, which was a real different situation than it is today.
And when you talk about, being required to wear the hats and gloves to the meetings, can you describe some of those? Where were the meetings held, and did everybody go, or how did that work?
Pretty much every county was there, and they were at, it was at the Student Union in Oklahoma State University. And then we also had national meetings that we went to. First one I went to was in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Did you go to those? How often were you able to go to those meetings?
Once a year. I didn't make all of them, but I did the first few years that I was in.
When you were able to go to the national meetings, how were those funded? Or?
You paid for your own travel. In fact, I think at the beginning you even took annual leave, but later they gave you leave time to go to the national meeting. And annual leave was vacation time, what we call vacation time.
So when did you get married?
1968.
That was a local producer here in Pawnee County.
Yes, a rancher here in Pawnee. The women all thought that I would have to resign from my position at that time, but at that time the law, the rules had changed, so it wasn't necessary.
What did some of the clubs, how did they help celebrate your wedding?
Oh, they had showers and receptions and different things.
Did they make any special gifts?
They gave me a silver tea service, coffee service for engraved that I've got for my wedding. Yeah. And then at Christmas time, they gave me one year, they gave me a homemade quilt. We were having a program on the history of quilts, and I had borrowed a program from the state library in Oklahoma City and was presenting it at our county meeting. We were in a church, and I didn't know they were doing this, and they had all made a block. Each club had made a block and put the name of the club and each of the members' names and had it quilted for me. So that was a special treat.
Do you still have that?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I don't use it on my bed all the time because I kind of preserve it, but I have it on a quilt rack in the bedroom.
As you look back on those names, are any of them still living?
Some of them are, some of them aren't. Yeah.
Do you remember any of those that have signed those quilt blocks that are still alive?
Yes, the younger group was called Dorcas, and Virginia Rogers and Chris Douglas and some of the Karen Gibson, some of the local women here in the county. The older club members, most of them are gone.
How many extension homemakers did you have at that time?
I think there were 12 clubs.
How many women?
Oh, probably 12 to 15 in each club. Yeah.
When you did the lessons for the Extension Homemaker clubs, how were those lessons delivered?
Well, at the beginning, I would teach a class, teach a program, like it might be something about folding fitted sheets, or it might be sewing something or making something. But later, then we went into the leader training system. And the leaders came to meetings, and you'd give one program, and then they would go back out into the clubs. And that's how I think they still do it at this time. And
so originally you would travel, teach those clubs, and give a lesson, and then they would send a representative later.
And later we did what's called leader training, but they didn't do that in the earlier days.
Do you remember a lesson that was extremely hard to put together?
Oh, not a specific one. We did a lot of food lessons, and you'd prepare a lot of it like at home or at night if you didn't have time during the day at work. And then we also traveled to other counties and gave so-called leader programs at that time too. And,
What was your average hours worked weekly at that time?
we didn't have anything on Wednesday nights, but usually you'd have a lot of Saturdays. You'd have Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday nights that you'd work, and then an 8-hour day on top of that. So.
Did you have regular things you did Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, or that was
No.
just when clubs were held?
When clubs were held, or events or activities were going on. Yeah. And county fair, when the county fair was going on, you'd spend about I don't know, from 8 in the morning till 9 or 10 at night at the fair.
Were you still attending every 4-H club meeting, or had that changed too when the extension homemakers?
We were still attending most of the 4-H meetings. Yes, keep them going.
About how many 4-H clubs did you have in the county?
We had about 9, I think, at that time. And,
During that time, did you have either a 4-H member or a extension homemaker that went to college and started working for the Cooperative Extension Service?
well, we have one now. The FCS and CED here in the county was a 4-H member when I was an extension agent.
What is her name?
Trinity Bryant Brown. She was a Bryant.
Her name is Brian.
Yes, at the time. And she had sisters too that were involved in the 4-H program.
How did that make you feel?
Older. Older. Now grandkids are coming on. I mean, the 4-Hers grandkids, kids and grandkids are coming on.
After you retired, first describe how did you make the decision to retire? Did something prompt that, or how did that decision come about?
Well, they had never offered the opportunity to retire from extension early. In the 30 years I'd been working, they'd never give this opportunity, but it came available, I assume because of budget problems. And if you had your time in, you could retire if you had 30 years in. And even though you didn't have the age, so they gave me the opportunity to retire, and I talked it over with my husband, and he said, "Yeah, go for it." So,
was there a financial incentive that went along with that?
not when I retired. They cut my salary when I retired. Yes, they cut my retirement was cut from
What it would have been.
if I had stayed full time. But about a year or 2 years later, they gave a pretty big incentive to retire. They gave them.
After retirement, there are some organizations, the faithful extension workers. Do you belong to that?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Can you describe that organization, and what are some of the things that?
Well, few is faithful extension workers. It's retired agents, and that's one thing in extension. You get pretty close to the people you work with, and we have twice a year at the state meeting in Oklahoma City. They get together, and then also in the fall they usually have something that they go to within the state of Oklahoma. It may be They went to southeast Oklahoma. I was gone last year when they had it, but visited one of the homes of one of the retired members, and we've gone to out in western Oklahoma and out that way, and have a little program or something of the aging in that area.
What are your membership dues to that organization?
It was $3. I don't think it's raised in all these years. I don't know what. It's $3 is what we pay at this time.
About how many attend at each meeting?
There's probably 20, 25, maybe. Mm-hmm.
I think they have a membership of 50, 60. Maybe.
Probably.
$3 you can't get.
That ain't bad.
We went out to Mary Jean Easterling's one year, to her home way out in western Oklahoma, and spent the day.
Can you tell me about some of the other extension home demonstration agents that retired about the same time and where they worked? Or do you remember any of those that went with you about the same time?
Yes, there's probably there's a small group that, besides a few members, we get together. Donna Cadwallander is retired in Stillwater.
What was her position?
She was at the state office, and Teresa Layton was in Lawton. Ruth Winter was a home economist in Stillwell, Adair County. Virginia Price, Cherokee County at Tahlequah. Darlene Leach was in Creek County. That was some of the ones that retired about the time I did.
Do you ever have the opportunity to see some of the ag agents that you had as peers during your career?
Well, there's one working back here in Pawnee County. Stan was here, Stan Thimple was here when I was county director, and then he left and then has come back to work in Pawnee County. Yes, Brad Tipton was here. I had quite a few ag agents that worked here. I always felt like it was kind of a training ground to move on to a better position, more money, more staff.
And did its proximity to Stillwater, that probably helped?
Probably helped, yes, because some of them were still working on, degrees, or the college was there. So.
Did you ever go back to school after you started working for the Extension Service?
No, I got my master's degree. Actually, I guess I did. Was taking I had taken some college courses, and then I finished my master's in '68. So I did take courses in the last 4 years, and then of course we had a lot of training classes but not as far as college credits. I didn't after I got my master's.
What did you get your master's in?
Housing and interior design.
And as we look back on your extension career or your time in 4-H, are there any other stories that come to mind that you'd like to share?
I can't think of any at this time. It's been an honor and a privilege to work for an organization that's been in 100 years, and considered a real pleasure.
Mr. Stan, do you have any questions?
Trying to think. I guess your family's still sponsoring the Hall of Fame award at Stillwater?
Yes, my
Family.
brother and I. Mm-hmm. Yes, it was kind of as a thank you for the years of 4-H that we were in. My brother and I give this Tarpey Hall of Fame, so once a year.
It's the Hall of Fame award?
Yes, in Payne County, for Payne
For
County.
Payne County.
For Payne County.
And how long have you been doing that?
Since 1960, so that's been how many years? A while.
You were young when you made that decision.
Yeah, I was still in college.
How How did that decision, that's pretty remarkable. How did that decision come about?
Well, I was in collegiate 4-H club too, not only 4-H but also collegiate 4-H, and it was just kind of a way of saying thank you for what it had done for me.
Is there, before we close, is there anything else that you'd like to add that we haven't talked about that you wanted to share?
Can't think of anything this time.
What's been the funniest thing you've experienced as an extension
The
educator?
funniest thing?
Funniest thing.
Funniest thing. Well, I've told this story several times. I was giving a food demonstration in Osage County, and I was at the fairgrounds, and I was sitting there, or I was standing there doing that, and this little boy was with his mother at the program, and he said all of a sudden, "I wish I had my BB gun," and I said, "Ooh." He said, "There goes the mouse," and it was running around behind me, and I didn't know where that mouse was going, but I just kept teaching the class, and I always think about that every time I'm doing something. I think about that little boy saying, "Wish I had my BB gun." And,
Martha, you can really tell that 4-H means a great deal to you.
yes.
If you, what would you tell a young 4-H member what 4-H meant to you over the years?
No. It's been a life-changing organization and something I'd highly recommend.
How did it change you?
Well, from a real shy person to be able to get before a group or speak. So, yeah, emotional about it.
It's worth a cry sometimes, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Means a lot. Well, we thank you for your time, and we greatly appreciate you participating in the project.
Thank you, Brenda and Stan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Liz.